The ego, the sense of a separate self, craves definition. It seeks to establish its existence by creating boundaries. It wants to know where I end and the other begins. This need for separation is fundamental to the ego's survival. Without distinct boundaries, the ego fears dissolution, a loss of identity. This fear drives the ego to constantly reinforce its perceived boundaries. It seeks out situations and interactions that confirm its separate existence. It thrives on contrast, on highlighting differences rather than commonalities. The ego's fortress is built brick by brick, each brick representing a distinction, a separation, a point of not me. Complaining and fault-finding are the ego's primary building materials. Every complaint, every criticism, every judgment serves to solidify the ego's fragile walls. When we complain about the traffic, the weather, or a colleague's behavior, we are essentially saying, this is not how I want things to be, this is not me, this is separate from me. Each complaint reinforces the illusion of separation, the belief that we are independent entities, somehow above or outside the situation we are criticizing. We fail to see our interconnectedness with the world around us, our shared humanity with the very people we complain about. The ego derives a sense of satisfaction from being right. It thrives on the feeling of superiority that comes from knowing better, doing better, or simply being better than others. This perceived superiority is a dangerous illusion, a trap that keeps us locked in a cycle of judgment and separation. When we believe ourselves to be superior, we create a hierarchical structure in our minds, placing ourselves above others. This hierarchy is based on illusion, on the arbitrary standards and judgments of the ego. It prevents us from seeing the inherent worth and value in every human being, regardless of their perceived flaws or shortcomings. The ego's need to be right manifests in countless everyday scenarios. In a traffic jam, the ego screams, "Why are these people driving so slowly? I'm better than this. I deserve to be at the front." In political discussions, the ego clings to its opinions, refusing to acknowledge the validity of opposing viewpoints. In the workplace, the ego whispers, "My ideas are better, my work is more important, I deserve more recognition." These seemingly insignificant thoughts and behaviors reveal the pervasive influence of the ego in our lives. They highlight our tendency to prioritize our own perceived needs and desires above those of others. Section 5. Mistaking the mind for the self. Identifying with opinions and judgments. The ego thrives on identification. It attaches itself to thoughts, beliefs, and opinions, mistaking them for the totality of who we are. When our thoughts and opinions are challenged, the ego feels threatened, as if its very existence is at stake. This identification with the mind creates a sense of rigidity and inflexibility. We become attached to our viewpoints, defending them with unwavering certainty. We fail to see that our thoughts are merely transient mental formations, not absolute truths. We become prisoners of our own minds, trapped in a cycle of judgment and self-importance. Section 6. The zero-sum game of right and wrong, the ego's need for a loser. The ego sees the world through a lens of duality. It interprets every situation, every interaction, and every person through a binary filter. This lens distorts reality, making it seem as though life is a constant battle between opposing forces. It divides everything into categories of right and wrong, good and bad, superior and inferior. This division is not just a mental exercise. It influences our emotions, our actions, and our relationships. We start to see the world in black and white, ignoring the rich spectrum of colors in between. For the ego to feel right, someone else must be wrong. This need to be right fuels arguments, conflicts, and even wars. It creates a sense of separation and alienation, as we constantly seek to prove our point and defend our position. For it to feel superior, someone else must be inferior. This superiority complex manifests in various ways, from subtle condescension to outright bullying. It affects our self-esteem and our interactions with others, making us feel either inflated or deflated based on external validation. This zero-sum game of right and wrong is a recipe for conflict and suffering. It traps us in a cycle of competition and comparison where we're always measuring ourselves against others. This constant comparison leads to feelings of inadequacy and resentment. It creates a climate of competition and comparison where we are constantly vying for validation and recognition. In this environment, our self-worth becomes tied to our achievements and the approval of others, making us vulnerable to stress and anxiety. We fail to see that our true worth is not dependent on being right or better than others. True self-worth comes from within, from recognizing our inherent value and the value of others. By letting go of the ego's need for a loser, we can find peace, connection, and genuine happiness. Section 7. The psychological toll of ego-driven behavior. The ego's relentless pursuit of separation and superiority takes a heavy toll on our psychological well-being. It creates an invisible barrier between us and the world, making us feel isolated and disconnected. This sense of separation can lead to feelings of loneliness and alienation, even when we are surrounded by others. When our thoughts and actions are driven by the need to be right, we experience a constant undercurrent of anxiety and insecurity. This need to always be correct can make us overly critical of ourselves and others, leading to strained relationships and a lack of genuine connection. We become fearful of making mistakes, of being wrong, of appearing foolish. This fear can paralyze us, preventing us from taking action and making decisions. It can also lead to a perfectionist mindset where we are never satisfied with our efforts and constantly strive for an unattainable ideal. This fear prevents us from taking risks, from trying new things, from fully expressing ourselves. It stifles our creativity and innovation as we are too afraid to step outside of our comfort zones and explore new possibilities. We become trapped in a cycle of self-doubt and self-criticism, constantly seeking validation from external sources. This need for external approval can make us overly dependent on others' opinions, leading to a lack of self-confidence and self-worth. The ego's need for control creates a sense of rigidity and inflexibility, making it difficult to adapt to change and navigate life's inevitable challenges. This inflexibility can lead to increased stress and frustration as we struggle to cope with the uncertainties and unpredictability of life. By recognizing and addressing the impact of ego-driven behavior, we can begin to cultivate a more balanced and fulfilling life. As Section 8, Cultivating Awareness, the first step towards liberation. The first step towards transcending the ego's grip is to become aware of its presence in our lives. We must learn to observe our thoughts and behaviors without judgment, noticing how often we engage in complaining, fault-finding, and self-righteousness. Mindfulness practices, such as meditation and yoga, can help us develop this awareness. By cultivating a state of present-moment attention, we create space between our thoughts and our sense of self. We begin to see that we are not our thoughts, but rather the observer of our thoughts. Section 9. Transcending the ego, embracing humility and compassion. Transcending the ego is not about eradicating the ego, but rather about shifting our identification from the ego to our true nature, which is pure consciousness. This journey is a profound transformation that requires patience and dedication. It is about recognizing that the ego is a part of us, but it does not define us. Our true essence is far more expansive and connected to the universe. This shift requires us to cultivate qualities of humility, compassion, and forgiveness. Humility is the foundation upon which we build our spiritual growth. It allows us to acknowledge our limitations and embrace our vulnerabilities. Compassion, on the other hand, is the bridge that connects us to others, fostering a sense of unity and shared humanity. Humility allows us to see ourselves as we truly are, flawed and imperfect human beings. It encourages us to let go of the need for external validation and to find peace within ourselves. By practicing humility, we open ourselves up to continuous learning and growth, understanding that we're all works in progress. Compassion enables us to extend understanding and kindness to ourselves and others. It's through compassion that we can truly connect with the pain and joy of those around us. This connection fosters a deeper sense of empathy and allows us to act with genuine care and concern. Compassion is not just a feeling, but a call to action, urging us to make a positive difference in the lives of others. Forgiveness liberates us from the past, allowing us to move forward with a sense of peace and acceptance. It is a powerful act of self-love that frees us from the chains of resentment and anger. By forgiving ourselves and others, we release the burdens that weigh us down and open our hearts to new possibilities. Forgiveness is a gift we give to ourselves, paving the way for healing and renewal. By embracing these qualities, we begin to dismantle the ego's fortress brick by brick and create a life of greater peace, joy, and fulfillment. Each act of humility, compassion, and forgiveness is a step towards a more enlightened existence. As we cultivate these virtues, we not only transform our own lives, but also contribute to a more harmonious and loving world. The journey of transcending the ego is a lifelong endeavor, but with each step, we move closer to our true selves and a deeper connection with all of humanity.